This video serves as an introduction to EasyCDF. For more information on individual functions, visit www.easysoft-usa.com. EasyCDF is broken into several modules. The first module is Loan Estimate. The loan estimate, just like the printed version, consists of 3 pages where basic loan information is entered and fees are calculated. Page 1 shows the basic information about the lender, the applicant, and loan terms. It is possible to enter terms in multiple columns for projected payments over different periods of time. For instance, page 2 consists of all the expected expenses. At the bottom is a calculating cash to close section. Amounts that are calculated here are also considered estimated and can be adjusted when it's time to reach the closing disclosure. This will result in a total estimated cash to close. Page 3 is the final page and contains more contact information, some comparisons, and some lines indicating various details about the loan. The layout is meant to mimic as closely as possible the actual loan estimate that will be generated. When all of the information has been entered, move to a closing disclosure, and you can import loan estimate data from there. This particular one wants to check my BSpath because I've used BSpath before. BSpath is similar to Closing Insights and a few other programs in that they combine MISMO information and other documents for sharing between different parties through the loan process. The closing disclosure is laid out with 5 pages. On page 1 at the top of the page is a breakdown of the closing information that I have entered so far so that I can quickly reference it. In this case, there are a few things that I don't have. I'm going to give myself a file number now. And I also don't have a seller. I'll press this button to add a new seller, and I actually have a selection of sellers already in my system, so I'll select from them. All of my information has been entered here, and I'm ready to move on. As you can see, I have payments showing up here just like they did on the loan estimate. My loan amount information is here. If I can change it, I just hit yes, and I can enter bullet points. I can also bold text if I need to. In my projected payments, I would like to make an adjustment on this, and I would make this a range payment. So I click the range box, and it lets me adjust from a simple single amount to a minimum and maximum amount. And now I will move on to page 2. Just like page 2 of the loan estimate, from which I gather this information, I have different amounts in here. I can add more information with drop downs and select existing line items that are commonly in those sections. For instance, the services borrower did shop for might include the survey fee, and I'm going to have the seller pay this one. It was $550. The system keeps everything alphabetized as you go, so it's easier to quickly reference later on. When it's time to enter tax information, I can set my jurisdiction. I'm going to use New Jersey, standard, and a tax table system will come up. In this case, most of this tax table is grayed out because the table is a little complicated for New Jersey, and the system knows what to do with it and automatically fill in the information. So I just hit OK, and I let it take care of the work. And you can see it is plugged in the information. Now you'll notice that some of these lines have blue shading to them, a dark blue, whereas others are white text boxes or have this sort of faded blue color. At this point, I should probably address what that means. Areas that are not shaded can be typed into normally like a text box. However, lines in blue usually are pre-calculated from somewhere else, in this case the tax tables. This dark blue indicates that the information has been calculated but can be edited if there's more information that the computer didn't know about. These faded blue boxes are locked in values that cannot be edited. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and leave everything else as it currently stands and move to page 3. On page 3, My loan estimates are listed here. My final amounts are listed there, so I can start doing my comparison of cash to close from the estimate and my final. Once again, I have the ability to add my bullet points with more information that I might add a note about. Further down the page is the summaries of transactions. For people who've been working in this industry for a while and are more familiar with the HUD 1, this is going to be the most familiar section, as it is basically laid out like page 1 of the original HUD 1. And it's gathering up tax prorations and things like that. Tax prorations are handled in our system by going to Tools, at the top of the page, choosing Tax Proration, and filling in this tax proration calculator. When I hit Apply, it would then populate the information to my summaries of transactions, and from there calculate throughout the system. Page 4 and 5 are mostly checkboxes to be filled out, information to read, and a few lesser calculations like the loan calculations here and escrow account information here. And then finally on page 5 at the very bottom, underneath the last set of contacts that can be added, is a checkbox for a seller's signature addendum, because the current version of the closing disclosure as laid out by the CFPB does not include one by default. And now I've filled out a closing disclosure. This closing disclosure can be printed in several ways. When I go to print, there's a CDF standard. That's going to be the full closing disclosure, all 5 pages. There's going to be a seller's disclosure, which is an abbreviated version for the seller, which is laid out by the CFPB. A buyer's disclosure, which we based on the seller's disclosure, is also an abbreviated version and is designed for the buyer to view and only shows their information. And finally, a loan estimate. In this case, let me demonstrate the seller's disclosure. So you can see how that 5 pages of information is compressed to 2. A first page with contact information and summaries of transactions, and a second page showing any closing costs that the seller has to deal with. And here at the bottom is a seller addendum as a third page with their signature. From here I can print this, save it as a PDF, and email it to customers, or save it as a Word document, rich text format. And if I'm using VSpath, I can also upload it as a PDF through this system. Additional functions in EasyCDF include a ledger. It automatically arranges the different amounts based on what was entered on the closing disclosure. From here, the ledger can be worked, combining, splitting, and checks can be printed. You can see print check lights up. And we'll make that starting with check number 1. And from there, I'm good. I've set my check number, made sure I'm using the right printer, and I can either print to a 3-check format or a check stub format. The system does the rest. It organizes everything as it's supposed to, so when I hit print, it goes right to the printer. There is also a 1099 section, which can be used to fill out 1099s, issuing them to however many sellers are needed, and submitting the information as well to the IRS. And finally, a case data and real estate section that kind of work together. So case data is exactly that. It has all of the information about the case, different attorneys that might be involved, the buyer information, the seller information. This is all mostly contact information and a few pertinent details, which will then go to the real estate docs. Real estate docs, and I'm going to use one of my common ones as a demonstration. Let's do easement by covenant. This is just an example document. There are several hundred in here. And what these documents are just different legal documents that might come up during a real estate matter. By having them all in one place, the information can be carried from the closing disclosure to case data. Additional information can be entered on case data, and then from there it fills in this form. So in this particular case, most of the form information is filled out by hand. You can see the highlights in yellow to indicate what needs to be entered, because this is information that wouldn't be tracked in case data, but would be case specific to that particular printing of that particular form. Some information, however, fills in automatically from the case data section. So let me bring up one of those now. On this house agreement, you can see that there are still a lot of sections that I need to enter specifically, but the address, which is always going to be the same thing, automatically fills in, and that one is a gray box. This bill of sale is another example. You can see in this case one of those gray boxes has not yet been filled out because that's a date that I haven't entered in my case data, but the contact information for the buyer and seller and the sale price, those are listed. This is a way to quickly generate complex forms without having to type in all of the information manually more than once. Finally, other features that are a little bit newer to the system. Title services, which is our newest function, includes a closing protection letter. Once you log in, you would be able to put in the state you're in and other information and quickly generate this letter. And under modules, in advanced printing, are ALTA statements, which are very popular with title companies and growing in popularity among settlement agents. I'll go ahead and load up a combined ALTA statement now as a quick demonstration. It actually lists all of the prices on the borrower and seller side. So I can quickly go down the list and see what everything is going to cost for both parties and get a total at the bottom. And finally, there's a signature box. It's a standard form from the American Land Title Association, and we have 4 of them, covering the situations of a combined system like this, a buyer-only version, a seller-only version, and a cash transaction version. And that is the basics for EasyCDF. As I said, I did not touch on several of these functions in any detail, such as a MISMO generation, beast path generation, title services, and other functions throughout the program. For more information, once again, visit www.easysoft-usa.com for a full selection of videos that go into greater detail. Thank you for watching.